G'day people, welcome back to the lab. We have a JBL Tuner 2 here today. This is a Bluetooth speaker with DAB and FM radio, but I would like to know what's inside, and I gather you would as well. So let's start up all the test equipment and tear this radio apart. First of all, to open up this JBL Bluetooth speaker or DAB radio, we're going to have to attack it from the bottom. And what we're going to do is we're going to fire up our heat gun to about 80 degrees Celsius. And then we're going to apply heat to these feet just to get them nice and warm and toasty so the adhesive breaks away a little bit easier. Now, because these feet have softened, they should be a little bit easier to take off. Just put our little metal spudger underneath and just gently pick up. That's our first one done. This is our second one. Spudger underneath. Pry up again. Keep this adhesive intact and peel back gently. We have 4 screws to take out, here, 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 and here. So we'll get our Phillips screwdriver and we'll remove those right now. Don't use a cordless electric screwdriver here, just do it the old-fashioned way and just gently extract the screws. If you use the cordless screwdriver, you will strip the heads. We're going to reheat the underneath here with our hot air gun at about 80 degrees Celsius, just to get this bottom panel all nice and warm. So if there's any double-sided adhesive on the other side, it will soften it up quite nicely and help it break away. Get a small flat screwdriver, a jeweler screwdriver, and you can see the port here, our USB-C and our input audio, and in between those two, just put the screwdriver in, and we're going to exploit a little crack, give it a good old push, and going to just lift it up slightly like that. Then get a larger flat screwdriver and put it in the same crack and just work your way around. Work back the other way. We now push off this bottom bit of plastic, get our thumbs behind it and gently push back until it clicks, and we've got our bottom panel off. We now need to take the end cap off here, the one with the little warning symbol, and for this we're going to use a metal spudger, and we're just going to go to the very bottom of the cap. Just exploit a crack as usual, give it a bit of a wiggle, and then give it a bit of a flex back, and it should pop just like that. Work your way around. And now we move to the other end. The same again. Get our little spudger in there, give it a bit of a wiggle, get it in as deep as it can go, and then flex back, and then work around to pop out the end. Now we're going to remove the screws from the ends, and we're going to use our cordless screwdriver with the Phillips bit in the end and we'll just insert it and extract all those screws. Same with the other end. We now have to remove the outside shell, and we do this by getting a little guitar pick, throwing it in one end, jamming it in there, and then getting our flat screwdriver and working our way along the crack, just exploiting that gap and opening up entirely along one edge. We flip it over and do the same with the other side. Throw our little wedge in and then use our screwdriver again to exploit the crack. And now we remove the whole outer covering, gently peeling it up, cracking as we go along. Work it from the other end, and our outer shell has been removed. We've got some more screws along the top, the side and the bottom, and we'll try and remove this grill here. So we'll get our electric screwdriver and just pop him in the top. Flip it over. We'll see if this comes off. How easy is that? Two more screws here. We're going to remove this display cover here, and what we're going to do is get a small flat jeweler's screwdriver and really dig it in into this little corner here, and just going to gently try and peel up this flap. And it's popped off. We'll just pull up this rubber seal, and it looks like we've got 8 more screws around the edge here, so we'll tear those out right now. We'll just see if we can break this away. Give it a bit of a wiggle, and we are inside. We're just going to start disconnecting a few cables. This is our little power button cable. So we just jam our screwdriver in on one side and release the locking tab, and then pull it straight out like that. Now we're going across to our speaker, flat screwdriver again. Just going to shove it in, unlock it, and then gently pull it out. Back to our display ribbon cable, finger and thumb wrapped around it, give it a bit of a wiggle, and that should come out. And the whole front face should just break away. We'll just knock out our little power or battery cable. Just give it a bit of a wiggle. Break that away. We have another cable here. We'll just give this a bit of a wiggle and pull this connector out. Most connectors will come out with a bit of a wiggle. We just have our antenna cable and our buttons cable left, so we'll pull those out right now. Antenna cable is nice and simple. We just pull that straight out. Got a bit of goop on it. Our buttons cable, we'll just get our screwdriver in there and give it a slight twist. We'll just quickly do the other side. Okay, and then we'll just wiggle it out with our fingers. This is the cable which controls the buttons on the top, station selection and things of that nature, volume, and that cable is free. We'll now lift out the whole printed circuit board, and we have 7 screws holding the PCB in, and we'll just use our trusty electric screwdriver as normal. We've just got a couple of cables in the way. We might just pull those out, make the job a little bit easier. See if this separates. We'll just have a look at this printed circuit board that we just pulled out of our DAB Bluetooth radio, and we'll have a look at it under the microscope so we can see the individual discrete components, and we'll go through a simple explanation of operation. Basically, the Bluetooth radio is all driven from this big square module here, and this is a DAB FM receiver, and we have a little bit of flash memory there as well. And all you have to do is you just plug in a keyboard, a display, a kind of an audio amplifier and speaker, and you basically got a Bluetooth radio just from this module by itself. And a lot of radios are engineered around this module. The JBL Tuner XL is engineered around this module. The Harman Kardon Oasis radios, they're engineered around this module, and this module does 90% of the heavy lifting, and basically all the circuitry around it just supports, you know, the audio amplification and interfacing to the different parts of the radio. So, you know, this does most of the work. So we'll have a look at some more of the discrete components and inputs and outputs. This is our antenna here that connects into the circuit board, and from there the signal goes to our little can here. We have discrete components, an RF amplifier, probably a little bit of Bluetooth connectivity here as well. And once that signal or RF signal is processed from the antenna, it's cleaned up a little bit and it's sent straight to the DAB module here, and that virtually grabs the signal and converts it to digital. And this black thing here is a little processor, and that's the whole brains of the operation. We have some memory here. I think it's 2 megabytes flash memory. And what happens is when you store a radio station, your 5 favorite stations or radio presets or other little settings that need to be stored, they actually get stored on this little chip here. So this holds a memory of everything that's associated with the DAB radio, and essentially that signal is passed onwards to the audio amplifier, which is way down here. That audio signal is passed down to this amplifier chip, which makes the signal bigger so we can then drive the speaker. And we have associated little filters for a little power supply here, and I'm gathering that this setup here is a step-up converter or buck converter. So what happens is that 3 or 4 volts from the battery gets up converted to around 12 volts or 13 volts, and this chip is happier with higher voltages and it gives it a little bit more grunt to drive the speakers and such forth. This next connector here goes to our display on the front of the radio. That's what gives you the radio station name and frequencies and things like nature, and that's derived directly from this module here, and this module drives that display. Further on, this is our little keyboard connector, or the connector for all the buttons on top of the radio, and that directly interfaces with our DAB module again, which takes all the inputs and outputs. Down here we have our on-off power that goes to an on-off switch that's on the actual side of the DAB radio. A couple of connectors here. This is inputs and outputs. This is from your USB-C and the audio input into the back of the radio. That all goes into this interface here. And this is the battery. And our lithium polymer battery is connected into this input here. And that's what gives the radio its power when it's not charging. And talking about power, we have 2 little fuses here. And they're the fuses that blow if there's a bit of a fault or malfunction with the battery itself or the power supply. And last but not least, this is the connector which connects our speakers, which gives us some sound of the radio itself. So all pretty simple. We have our front face assembly here. We can see we have our little display, and then we have our speaker, and we'll flick that over. And you can see the little speaker assembly here, cable going to the printed circuit board, and display driver ribbon cable. But we have something very interesting here. We have a little diaphragm, and we'll have a look at that from the front. And this diaphragm sits in behind the display, and what actually happens is the actual case of this, the Bluetooth radio itself acts as a bit of a resonant cavity, and this diaphragm acts as a bit of a woofer. It gives you that doof doof sound, so it acts as a bit of a passive woofer. So very clever design there. But again, very simple construction. So we'll move on to the main back assembly. Here it is, the back assembly, and we have our little cavity here which the circuit board goes into. We have our antenna up the back. We have our cables here, on-off switch, and we have our little buttons that normally go on top. And we have our little cable here which goes to our battery. And then we have our little inputs and outputs that are on the back. This is our USB-C and our audio input. And what we'll do next is we'll have a closer look at this battery, but we better take it out first. This is our battery we've extracted out of the battery case. It is a lithium ion battery, and it's known as an 18650, and that's because it's 18 millimeters wide and about 65 millimeters long. We have the flying lead going to the side of it, positive and negative, plus 2 other leads. That's just for a temperature sensor that sits up this end, just to make sure the battery doesn't pop if it overheats. But let's take a closer look at this label under the microscope, and we will have a look at the specifications. Here are the specs of the battery itself, and we see on the very top line, its model is an IAA 004NA, and it's made by IES, which is a Chinese company based out of Shenzhen in China. Big battery manufacturer, make batteries for all sorts of things, and rechargeable lithium ion. Nominal voltage is 3.63 volts. Rolling along a little bit further, 2.5 amp hours, or a bit over 9 watt hours, and some Chinese writing and the obligatory warning, do not put in fire, do not eat, blah blah blah, just all the normal stuff. What we'll do is we'll check the voltage of the battery and we'll see what it comes up. We've got our connector here and our multimeter leads, so we'll just bring up our multimeter. Put our positive probe on the positive, put our negative probe on the negative, give it a hard push down, and we can see we've got 3.8 volts. You can buy this lithium ion battery from stores on eBay, Alibaba, specialist online battery stores, and it goes for between $30 and $60, but you've got to weigh that up against the actual cost of the radio, which is just over $100. So it may not be worth changing out this battery. But if you want to get your hands dirty and have a little bit of fun, it might be worth giving it a crack yourself, and yeah, just seeing what happens. We are all done. Now I have to put this all back together again, but I'll leave that until tomorrow. If you want to know more about the JBL Tuner 2, check in the description down below for other videos. If you're interested in repairing other stuff yourself, check out the rest of our channel. Don't forget to share, like and subscribe. Other than that, we will see you next time in the lab.